toasting, joking too. Sipping and roasting is what we do. Light 'em up, drink 'em down. Whiskey and cigars all around. Cheers, y'all.
That sounds like a party, please.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine radio program, podcast, and video extravaganza known internationally as the world-famous Smokin' and Toastin'. Welcome to show number 312. That's 312.
That brings us halfway to 333.
Very excited to be halfway along. That's really cool. I actually looked at it on the calendar, Ian, assuming that we don't wind up, doing something that causes us to skip a show. It's going to be like in July that we do show number 333.
Well, we won't get frostbite.
Yeah, that's for sure. We may have to do it in swimwear, though, is what I'm thinking. So
I got my Speedos ready.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Our guest for today's show, we're very excited. Bill Chenault is joining us. He is with Waterford Irish Whiskey, and we have a lot to talk about and a lot to taste with Waterford, so we're psyched over that. But, Bill, you haven't even, really been on the show for more than a minute, and you're already invited back. Because on show number 333, which will take place in July,
it's going to be epic.
We're inviting everyone who's ever been a guest on the show to come all at once.
This is a small room.
Yeah, that's why we'll do it on location. Okay. Not everyone will be able to be there, so it's not like we're going to have 312 different guests. But we'll have a lot, and everybody brings bottles and cigars and cans. And when we did this for the 100th show, and it went on for almost 4 hours.
Sign me up.
So yeah, it was a great deal of fun. So we're looking forward to that. So anyway, you're already invited back, and we haven't even tasted the whiskey yet. So that's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. You're getting a good reception here on Smokin' and Toastin'. So welcome to the show. We have a lot to talk about today. Not just Waterford Irish Whiskey in the studio, but we'll be doing some beer tasting as well from right up the road from us in Humble, Texas. Ingenious Brewing Company has something they call the Riddle. It's a Smarty sour.
That place is awesome.
Yeah, so they're just so creative. We could have a different beer of theirs on every week and never never repeat. Yeah, they're so good like that. From Spoetzl Brewing and Garrison Brothers, Shiner's Brewer's Pride, barrel-aged Doppelbock. On the program today. And then we'll also be trying something called Gumballhead. It's a hazy pale ale from out of Indiana.
And it's called Gumballhead.
Gumballhead.
You gotta wonder where they get their names sometimes.
Well, I think there's so much going on in the world of craft beer now. And they're having to get so creative with the cans and the design.
They're like, just pick two pieces of paper out.
Yeah,
that's
right.
What we're
exactly.
Call this beer.
I think that's exactly right.
Can I say something?
Exactly. Oh, absolutely.
If you go to the TTB website, which gives you a cola registry of all names for beverage alcohol, and you punch in the most obscure name that you can think of, 95% of the time, it's taken.
Yeah.
Somebody's
and
done
registered.
it.
Oh, man, somebody has Cricket Saddleback whiskey.
I'll bet you.
I imagine that's true. Well, that's very. It should be very interesting to.
I made up my own
see.
word, and it's still taken.
That's right. Google was actually a word before Google was a search engine. In fact, there was some kind of a flavored peanut butter. It was like a peanut butter with jelly in it or something that was advertised when I was a kid, and it was called Kugel, not Kugel like the Jewish dish, but Kugel, Koogle, and they had a character, kind of like the Kool-Aid character, but it was a jar of peanut butter, and it was peanutty. I remember the commercial from when I was a kid. It was peanutty Kugel with the googly eyes. So at least the word Google existed
Google,
there.
Google's been a word.
Yeah, you don't have to.
But I think that didn't his daughter decide that's what to name it was Google?
Maybe so.
I think there's a story about that where he didn't have a name for it, and she decided.
I don't know.
And he asked her, and she said Google, and that's what she was like. Okay, that's what it is.
Some of these naming stories.
That's what I understand.
Look how we struggled.
And if that's not how it happened, that's way cooler than probably almost anything they'll come up with.
Look how we struggled to name this show. It was originally called Sip, Smoke, and Savor.
That's right.
And then there's apparently some outfit in California that does chocolate-covered strawberries that they sent us the lamest cease and desist ever. It was a message on Facebook.
Oh, I know. I remember getting that.
Yeah, you were the one that got
it. Was
Yeah.
condescending.
Yeah. Oh,
it's nice that you guys have hobbies.
Yeah,
that's how it started.
Right. But we're a business, and we have chocolate-covered strawberries. Oh, no. Yeah. So we talked to our lawyer, and he just said, "Look, just come up with another name." So Ian, thankfully, came up with Smoking and Toasting, which I like better anyway. But the problem is, it's not easy coming up with a name these days because everything's taken.
But now it's part of the vernacular in our language.
Oh yeah, it totally is. Yeah. It totally is. So, anyway, speaking of things that are a little bit annoying, I want to address something real quick before we get into our cigars.
Do we need some background music for this?
Maybe soften it a little bit. Yeah.
I don't know what's happening, but I can underscore it a little bit.
So the point that I want to make is something that we talk about a lot here on the show, which is that one of the reasons we enjoy doing this, cigars, spirits, craft beer, is because these are things that when you get together with someone else who appreciates them, the differences that you have as people become far less important. You can see a Democrat right next to a Republican, both enjoying cigars and both enjoying each other's company. Those things kind of melt away, right? When you're just enjoying a great craft beer with someone, it doesn't really matter what they think about, which team they're picking for the Super Bowl. Oh, damn it, I owe the NFL money again. Which team they're picking to win the big game, and if they're your hated rivals. That stuff matters less and less. So something happened recently at Southern Star Brewing in Conroe, up the street from us. And they've been taking a lot of heat for this. And I just want to say, if you're one of the people giving them heat, stop. What happened was there was a freedom of speech rally that had booked their brewery as a place to hold a rally. Freedom of speech rally sounds like something everybody could agree on, right? But as it turns out, they had booked a very divisive individual for this, Kyle Rittenhouse, who actually was acquitted, but he actually killed, supposedly in self-defense, a couple of people at a rally, at a Black Lives Matter rally. And as such, he became a pretty divisive figure. There's people who think, hey, he had every right to do what he did. There's people who feel like he went too far and should not have done what he did, and that it was motivated by hate speech or whatever. The point I want to make is not to take a side on that. I do have a side. I feel pretty strongly about it, but that's not what we do on this show. We talk about the things that bring us together. And Southern Star, when they found out about this, and they found out because they were contacted by local businesses that were concerned that it could potentially be something that could turn into a problem with people protesting or possible violence. Southern Star did absolutely the right thing, and they said, we don't want to be a part of something this divisive. They didn't take a side. They didn't say he was good, he was bad. They didn't say it was a good thing or a bad thing to have the rally. They just said, you know what, that's not what we do. We make beer.
Right.
We make beer. We don't take sides in political arguments. We don't try to be the arbiter of what's right and wrong, what's good and bad. And they took a lot of heat for basically saying, you guys can go and do this, we just don't want you to do it here. And they're a private business. It's not a government facility. They're a private business. They can decide to hold or not hold anything that they want to. And all they were saying was, they weren't saying anything about a side on the issue. They were simply saying, we just want to make beer.
Not on my yard.
Right, not on my yard. We just want to make beer. And so I want to say to you that if you feel like they should have taken a stand, you're wrong. They shouldn't have. This is not. Now, if they had decided to, that would be their right. And it would be totally fine for them to do that. But they don't have to. And they don't have to agree with you. And they don't have to agree with the other guy. They simply want to make beer. And that's what I think we should take away from
and
all
that
this.
owner was very transparent and
Absolutely.
honest about where he was coming from.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's talk about who put who in what situation. If you book a rally there, you know your rally is divisive, and you know there's problems around there. You wouldn't disclose that at the beginning of your booking, right?
Right. You would
so
think.
who put him in that situation? It wasn't him that put him in that situation. Right. He's doing a business. He's doing what he wants to do. If you book And don't get me wrong, those people know that what they're doing is going to create some heat.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so
they
why
didn't
should Southern
disclose
Star
that.
have to take that heat?
Well, they didn't
that's not what
disclose
they
that
did,
at
yeah.
all to Southern Star. They didn't tell them, hey, I want to tell you this is something,
Right. Now, if
or
they
anything about it.
If they disclosed it and Southern
And so,
Star said,
for those of you
"Do it,"
blaming
that's
Southern
different.
Star, well, that's like me coming onto your front porch and doing whatever I want to do because you said I could be there.
Right.
I mean, I'm going on your front porch, shoot guns, whatever it is you're against. I could just come on your porch and do it. You said I could be there, and then you're going to get upset when I show up and do it, or when you find out what I'm going to do. That doesn't make any sense.
Right,
So, to be upset at Southern Star about that, I think is putting the cart before the horse a bit and going, okay, well, who put who in that situation?
Right. I love what he said. He said, we just want to make beer. We want to make beer and we want people to enjoy our beer. That's all we want to do. We don't want to get involved in politics. And I'm not saying that it would be wrong if they did. I'm just saying that's
I'm gonna be
what
honest.
I love about this whole thing is the community of it.
I've had a conversation with my brother about this as well. I generally don't go to places that post their politics, like businesses that post their politics,
agree.
whether they're on my side or not.
I agree.
Because generally speaking, if I want to go buy toothpaste, I don't need to know who you're voting for.
Right, that's exactly right.
If
Yeah.
I want to stop and get gas, I don't care what your
You just need
political
the gas
leanings
that
are.
works in your truck.
Yes,
You
and I don't want to deal with that. And so
Ian drives a truck, by the way. I wasn't making some sort of a sideways comment there.
Nothing against trucks, I hope.
Yeah. Well, he has a very nice truck. He's given me a ride in it before.
but the bottom line is, I just when you start posting your political, and you're right, you can do that. I'm not
Right.
telling you by any means not to.
It wouldn't have been wrong if Southern Star had taken a side. That's their right to do.
That's
It's
fine,
their
they absolutely
business.
can. But it's
Yeah.
also their right to not take a side and not be
Exactly.
a political entity. Because guess what? As soon as they let that happen, then all of a sudden they become that political entity
Right.
because they supported it,
right,
whether
It's
they
just-
do or not.
Exactly.
And that becomes the problem, is the perception from no matter which angle. At this point, no matter which angle, there's going to be people saying, well, you should have stood up for them, or you should never have booked them in the first place, or you should have blah, blah, blah. The truth is, if they didn't have enough information when they booked it, it's not their fault.
Right. Exactly. And listen, I wondered at first if I even wanted to talk about this on the show, because I don't want us to take a side either. You know what I mean? I just want us to talk about what brings us together, and that's this this cool hobby that we have, according to the people with the
It's
strawberry.
nice to have a
It's nice to have a hobby, and ours is getting together with people we like and enjoying drinks together, and maybe the occasional cigar. Speaking of which, by the way, you have an opportunity to smoke anything interesting this week, my friend?
It's funny you should ask.
Okay, I usually do, by the way. Yeah,
I don't know why it's funny. It's funny every week, because every time you tell a joke, it gets funnier. That's why.
I couldn't agree more. By the way, my wife does not agree with
not
that
believe
at
that
all,
so
but I do, yes.
So I stopped at Casa this morning on the way here to the show and perused the humidor and found something new, something that just came out that I hadn't seen recently. I found a Punch Spring Roll.
Oh, I've heard about this cigar.
So the Punch Spring Roll, they put out a cigar every year for the Chinese New Year. Mm-hmm. And instead of, giving it a Chinese Zodiac or some other thing like that, they actually name it some kind of food.
Some kind of food, yeah.
And so this is the Spring Roll.
Nice.
It's a Petite Robusto, 5.5 by 50. If you look up the container it comes in a little like you get the fried rice.
Oh
in. It
yeah,
comes in
that's
a
great. One of those little
like that
boxes.
with
I
the
love
cigar.
it.
It's
I
pretty
love
nice.
it.
This is pretty small, 5.5 by 50. They call it a takeout size.
Mm-hmm.
The wrapper is an Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper, uses a USA broadleaf binder and filler from Dominican, Colombia, and Mexico. The appearance, milk chocolate brown wrapper, smooth, oily with some small veins through it. Red and white label. The red and white label is awesome. It's got some Chinese caricature on it. And
Nice.
I don't know what it says, but
Neither do most people who've gotten those caricatures on their body as a tattoo. They have no idea what it says.
and it has a shaggy foot to it, which is pretty
always,
cool.
Always
too,
kind of
yeah.
fun, yeah.
The pre-light sniff on this: fermented hay, mocha, earth, some leather on it. The pre-light draw, I used a punch on this, had a medium draw. It was medium almost to the point where I was going to open it up with a clip, but I left it. And it smoked fine.
Yeah,
just
okay.
FYI.
Okay.
The punch had a medium draw, got earthy, sweet flavors, leather and mocha, and some coffee on the lips. You know, that wrapper left that kind of lingering coffee taste on my lips. The initial light on this: tangy leather, fresh cut hay, and some cayenne. Retrohale is woody and pepper. The first third of this: woody and sweet, mocha and coffee, loads of leather, touch of clove, kiss of spice going on in the background. The retrohale on the first third is woody and black pepper, solid ash, perfect burn.
Nice.
The second third of this is going by fast because this is only 5.5 inches long. So, the second third of this, spice picks up flavor. Spice picks up flavor profile shifts to leather and earth up front, followed by pepper and mocha. Wood and coffee are still present as well. Retrohale is leather and wood. Solid ash, perfect burn. The last third of this, peeling the wrapper off left me with a fun surprise: a fortune cookie style message on the back of the label. You can see it in the picture right here.
Okay, yeah.
And it said, "You were smart enough to buy this cigar. You don't need luck."
That's good. That's good. I really like that.
I thought that was clever. It was pretty funny. So let's see. Cayenne ramps up at the back of the palate along with fresh cut hay. Leather and earth are still prominent, followed by wood and powdered sugar sweetness going on that popped up in there somewhere. Wood. Oh, see, I said wood twice. Coffee and mocha weave throughout. Retrohale is sweet mocha and wood. Solid ash, perfect burn.
Nice.
Punch. They're not a brand I always buy cigars from.
Agreed.
And the only reason is not because their cigars are bad or anything, but they're just everywhere.
Right.
And so I kind of look for new stuff.
Kind of ubiquitous, yeah.
And so I fall behind a little bit on them because of that, because I really do like punches. Like,
Yeah.
Not getting them, but you know what I mean. Well, I mean, you
Sure.
work that out.
My favorite punch cigar is the Knuckle Buster.
That's a nice
really
one.
good cigar.
So this cigar costs $6. I give it a solid 7.
Oh, dude.
100%.
It's a couple of weeks in a row you've given big ratings.
It was a great cigar, and it was a great 45-minute cigar.
I think their last, or one of their last food-named cigars was the pita. And that was one thing, like a piece of pita bread.
Right.
And that was one that I really enjoyed. I don't know whether they still make that or whether they move on to the egg roll.
I think they only make so many boxes and they move on. But I will tell you, I will be going back to buy and maybe even split a box of these with somebody.
Nice.
These are really fun.
I love it. Well, I had an interesting one this week. I smoked the San Cristobal Elegancia Imperial.
Oh, nice.
The San Cristobal line is a true meeting of cigar royalty. The Garcias, as in Don Pepin and Jaime, they blend and manufacture this brand for the Levin family, or the Levine family, who own the Ashton brand, as well as La Aroma de Cuba.
Nice.
Most of the smokes in the San Cristobal line are big and bold, but they decided to blend a milder one, and they called it the Elegancia. It's an attempt by the two families to create a lighter-bodied smoke that's
does that bring it down to medium, or
still
is it
big
actually
on
lower than that?
Exactly. Well, I'll get to that because they wanted to make a lighter-bodied smoke, but one that still was big on flavor. The wrapper of the 6x52 Elegancia is an Ecuadorian-grown Connecticut shade leaf, and it is a beautiful light brown color and almost flawless, which you can see right here, with very few bumps and visible seams. The pre-light sniff gave me notes of hay and white pepper with a nice mellow nuttiness on the cold draw. I decided it looked too delicious to wait any longer, so I lit her up so I could get my tasting notes started. Cedar and spice showed up right off the bat, enough to leave a little white pepper tang on my tongue, but certainly not a Nicaraguan pepper blast. There was also a creamy coffee note and toasted bread that kind of sashayed their way into the flavor profile.
Sashayed?
Yeah, as the first third burned. Construction was absolutely solid, and the Elegancia gave off a nice quantity of thick smoke.
Okay, I want to pause you there. How long did it take you to figure out how to spell sachet?
I don't know that I did spell it right.
Okay.
These are my
No,
notes, and only I'm reading them. So I know what it's supposed to be, and beyond that, I have absolutely no idea. But it doesn't have a little red line under it in my...
So it spells something.
Yeah, right. I spelled something. I don't know if it was sashayed or something about a sash that you wear for graduation ceremonies, but one or the other. As I crossed into the second third, the creaminess shifted from the coffee note to more one of butter. So this butter now combines with the breadiness to give me a sense of buttered toast, which is really kind of cool. Pepper wasn't strong, but it still danced on my tongue a little bit, particularly after the finish. Retrohale was cedar and citrus zest. The wrapper cracked a little bit during the second third, but overall, it gave me no headaches as the cigar continued to burn. I thought I'd watch it and see what it did, and sure enough, it just burned right past the crack.
Right past it.
Yeah, so it was not a problem at all. Nothing changed about the way the draw happened or anything like that. You find this sometimes on Connecticut shade wrappers because the tobacco leaf is thinner than some others, and so it can have a tendency just from the heat to crack a little bit. As long as it doesn't disintegrate and you can still keep on smoking.
As long as it smokes.
Exactly. By the final third, I'd become more and more impressed with the San Cristobal Elegancia. I'm a medium to full cigar guy. That's kind of my sweet spot in terms of strength, and I often find that mellower cigars just don't have as much flavor. Not only are they not as strong, but they don't have as much flavor often. However, that was not the case with the Elegancia. The Nicaraguan tobacco in the binder and filler kept the flavor cranked up, even as the smooth creaminess kept the strength from ramping it up. Zero harshness.
Nice.
Zero. Cedar was the dominant note in the last third, although I still got pepper and that buttery creaminess. Overall, a very enjoyable flavor profile. The San Cristobal Elegancia is Imperial, which is basically a large Toro. It's about an $8 cigar, right in my kind of standard price range, and it was really good. I don't smoke a lot of milder cigars, but to my particular palate, this one was really better than most. And the flavor profile stayed interesting. It never developed that vegetal note that sometimes milder cigars I've experienced. It drives me crazy about some of the lighter-bodied cigars. Construction was flawless except for that small crack, which I said corrected itself without a relight, didn't cause any problems. So not only am I going to recommend the Elegancia Imperial, but it's actually going to become my go-to for my humidor for a lighter-bodied cigar because the ones I have now, that kind of are my sort of standard. If I have a Connecticut wrapper cigar, just in case I'm looking for that or want to give it to somebody, that's over, that doesn't want a fuller-bodied cigar, I thought this was better. So if you're getting bored with the lighter-bodied sticks that you usually smoke, but you don't want to get punched in the face by a heavier cigar, I would strongly encourage you to try this one. At $8, I'll give it, on price to quality, a solid 6.
Nice.
So our price to quality is a 1 to 10 scale, but a 5 means you got what you paid for. So rate something a 6, it means it kind of punched above its weight class a little bit.
Love it.
To use the punch analogy. Again. So in our next segment, we're going to start doing a little whiskey tasting. And Bill, I also want to find out a little bit more about you because I know you've been in the spirits industry for a while, and then I think you kind of stepped away from it and you came back to do this. Is that right?
Yeah, I started selling wine in 1979.
Okay.
Before
I drank wine
you
in
were
1979.
No. After you were
Well,
born.
thanks a lot. I think I've just been insulted.
Just so you know, in 79, I was 6 years old.
So I started with Gallo and moved across the country with them and have been a distributor in Texas that's no longer in business. The old Quality Beverage Company that morphed into Southern and Republic now. But I'm a wine guy. And when we get into the whiskey, I'll explain why that is important.
Good.
I'm a wine guy by training. I retired a year and a half ago.
And now you're in.
I don't know if you can see the quote unquote, but the close quotes, but
sometimes you can hear the air quotes.
It's like a whoosh whoosh sound. Yeah.
I was not able to get away from it.
Well, and I'm very interested to taste the spirit it was that brought you kind of back
Right
into
on,
this
man.
world.
I try to get out.
They
keep dragging me back.
It's very cool.
That's absolutely right. All right, so we're going to take a break. We will be back to talk about that, do a little whiskey tasting, plus it's also going to be beer tasting time, and I'm really excited about trying this beer from Ingenious, the Riddle, a Smarty Sour. We'll be right back at Smoking and Toasting. Welcome back. It is Smoking and Toasting. Our program's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Show number 312 with our special guest, Bill Chenault, with Waterford Irish Whiskey. By the way, big thanks to our special guest last week. Blake Niederhofer was
so
here.
fun.
He is the head brewer at Lone Pint Brewery, one of my absolute favorite breweries. I love their beers, and he was just so fun to hang out with.
He was a blast.
Just had an absolute blast with him. So thank you, Blake, and make sure you make it for number 333. We're halfway there. So I also wanted to mention, Ian, I did not tease drinking news, but today's drinking news is going to be another episode of Drinking Escapades. We've done several of those. That's where we have the real short little clips of stuff that people have done while they're under the influence. So Drinking News will be coming up a little later on in the show, and you can go ahead and give me a little teaser headline music, even though it's not really a teaser headline. Yeah, it's just another episode of Drinking Escapades. Fun enough. By the way, I forgot to tell you this. The next beer that we're going to try the Ingenious Brewing Company Smarty Sour called the Riddle. But I didn't really tell you enough about the Gumballhead, and it's because for some reason things moved around on my notes, and I didn't have it at the time. But Gumballhead is an American wheat pale ale from Floyds Brewing. From Indiana, from Munster, Indiana, and Floyds a pretty legendary brewery.
Floyds pretty legendary.
Yeah, so looking forward to that, and looking forward to Waterford Irish Whiskey as well. And Bill Chenault is here with us from Waterford. So it was somehow this was what sort of dragged you back into the spirits business, huh? In
a way, I when I retired, the company that I was working for, the winery out of California, asked me to kind of hang around. 1099 employee in Texas, and just kind of help them out with Texas, because we have a lot of business here that I have relationships with.
And they may be putting out new products that they need help in getting launched or whatever, right?
So then when folks found out that I had retired, I got calls left and right from different suppliers wanting to get the Texas thing going. And because, it's not my knowledge, it's not my... well, it would be my knowledge, but it's more my relationships.
The people that you know
with the trade and the distributors.
Sure. And that's important because that's how you get shelf space is those kind of relationships, right?
Absolutely. So with being careful about how much my wife would allow me to work, I have been very selective, very discriminating on what I'm going to do. And this was... irrefutably the most interesting project put in front of me.
That's awesome.
So other than some of the wine brands I've had over years, this is the only spirit that I'm representing.
Interesting.
So it's been a wild ride, and I've only been doing it for 4 months, but I've learned a lot since then.
Awesome.
And we can talk about that.
Well, so what was it about this particular brand that struck your interest?
So when they were looking for a sales person to start building their United States team, one of the criteria was to have some wine background, and the reason for that is this is a whiskey. Oddly enough, because to my knowledge, there's no other whiskey in the business that approaches it this way. It is terroir focused.
Now I noticed that because I was on the website for Waterford, and I noticed there was an awful lot of talk about terroir, which we hear, of course, a lot with wine. Hear it to some degree with tobacco, with cigar tobacco, but you don't hear it as much with whiskey. You do hear more about like the water, like the limestone water, and things like that. But you don't hear as much about terroir. And so, what is it about Waterford that makes the terroir part of it so important?
So it's all about the barley. In Ireland, the rule is that its whiskey must be 100% barley. There can be no other cereal grain in the bottle.
Okay.
Unlike most other regions
whiskeys, yeah,
across
right.
the world can allow, corn or rye, etc., to be inside the bottle. That's not true with Waterford. So, if I may go back in history, not far back, but the owner of the company and his investment team originally owned Bruichladdich.
Okay.
On the island of Islay in Scotland. And this dude,
Pretty well-known
yes,
brand, right?
And bought, I might say, because this is the end of his financial story, bought in like 2013 by Pernod Ricard for 50 million euro. So he made some money. The dude's name is Mark Rainier. He's third-generation wine purveyor in London, England. He's been written up in Whiskey Magazine like 6 times in the last 4 months since I've been around doing this. Very, very knowledgeable guy. Had a distiller when he was owning and had renovated totally the Bruichladdich company or distillery in Scotland. His distiller said, bar none, the best barley in the world, he believes, is Irish barley. So he had it in the back of his mind when he got he made the sale to Pernod Ricard, that he would go then into the Irish whiskey realm and
use this barley. That
and
he heard
use
about.
the barley from Ireland. And most of the barley in Ireland, and I was able to go. I just returned. My wife and I just returned 4 weeks ago. It was a hoot. And that's a whole nother segment. But most of the barley in Ireland is from the center to the southeast quadrant, if you will, and it has different terroir factors applied to it. And so Mark's idea was if in Napa Valley, if Cabernet that's grown on the western side of Atlas Peak tastes different than Cabernet grown on either the bench or on the eastern side of Atlas Peak, tastes different because of the terroir, why wouldn't that same effect
Play out with the barley.
apparent in barley? So they hired this guy from. Anyway, long story short, he bought a brewery that was in Waterford, Ireland. It was built in 1795. I studied this before I walked in the parking lot. 1795. It was run and making beer by Guinness, actually. So, as you probably know, a brewery converting to a distillery is not that big a deal.
Right.
All it requires is the still.
It kind of starts off the same way.
Right on. So he found this brewery that was available. He's totally renovated. It's a beautiful facility. So in 2015 was the first harvest of the barley. 2016, 17 was the first distillation of the barley. And it's all zeroed in on identifying all the way to the consumer the whiskey that's in this bottle. They know exactly which farm it came from.
I'm looking at the back of this bottle, and it says, to discover the whiskey's remarkable provenance, enter the terroir code on the waterfordwhiskey.com, and then you have a code here. Like, for instance, this one is OR01E01-01. Now, let me ask, that's for each batch of whiskey that comes out?
That would be the 01 refers to 1-1, which is year one, first distillation. So that refers to so every bottle of organic Gaia will have that same code. This bottle of whiskey has a different code, as does this one, as does this one. But that one expression has a
very distinctive
about a 5-page document that tells you everything you want to know about this whiskey.
If you want to know your whiskey, you could just go onto the website and you put this code in, and it tells you everything about it, like the whole history of
it's,
it.
The history of it, the
it's
terroir,
friggin' incredible, all the way to
From
the family
seeds
history
to bottle, pretty much.
of the Dunmore farm that's owned by, I forget the dude's name. We met him, Dunway or something like that, but it refers to his family, and then it goes back in history as to how that farm was built and established back in the 1700s.
How incredibly cool.
It really is cool. And you know what would make it even cooler is if, while we're hearing about it, we were actually sipping some of the whiskey. You like the way I think?
I think that's exactly right.
I rushed out for a second at the beginning of the segment so I could get some Glencairn glasses, which is ultimately this much classier than drinking from plastic cups.
Sure. I don't mind drinking from plastic cups. It's that is still more elegant than the red Solo cup. So at least we haven't gone all the way. You know what I'm saying?
So this is done. This is Dunmore 1.1.
Oh,
so this is what we call a single farm origin.
Okay.
They call it SFO.
So that means that all the barley used in this came from one farm.
All the barley's from one farm.
Mm-hmm. And
they have a after it goes through the drying process, when the truck pulls in to the lot at what they call the Cathedral, which is a huge 2 football field long storage facility. It looks like a horse barn with stalls. Each stall has identified the farm from which that barley came. So, and that's how they know, they keep track of with a database, extensive database, that farm's barley all the way through the malting process, all the way through the distillation process, all the way through the a barrel wood process into the bottle. And no other whiskey that I'm aware of is doing it this way. They hired a guy from Oregon State who's a biochemist or whatever the academia term is.
A smart dude, as we like to call him.
A guy a lot smarter than me.
He gets all science on it and stuff.
Did the analysis that certainly the genomes, the aromas, the tastes are in fact different depending on where that grain came from.
Wow, very interesting. Yeah. It has, Ian, tell me if
it's spicier than I expected from the nose. That's for sure.
I agree with that. And tell me if this resonates with you. It strikes me as a taste somewhere in between what I would associate with a Scottish single malt and a more standard Irish whiskey. It feels like it's in that middle ground somewhere between those two.
Yeah, it's just really interesting because the nose, you got this sweetness, and I associate that with that sweetness right there is very much, to me, Irish whiskey always has that sweet, grainy kind of nose to it. Grain might not be the right word, but it always has a bit of that, and there's a little underlying sugary kind of smell, and that's separate from sweetness, if that makes any sense too.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a slight sugary smell to it, but not in a bad way, and then almost like a bready nose to it, like a brown bread kind of thing going on. And then I take a sip, and it's this incredible spicy like flavor explosion that I did not expect from the nose at all.
I'm not going to profess that I have a terrific palate, but to me, which I don't think I do have a great palate, but to me it's the tannins of a citrus. To me, it's like an apple, a freshly cut green apple, not a red apple, are things that I pick up.
So it's interesting because I hear you coming at this, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
The way that a wine guy would come at this, and you're feeling out. We're talking about things that are maybe more whiskey background things, and you come at it after your career basically in the wine business, tasting it like a wine lover would taste it.
I can almost see it's
pulling the fruit flavors out and so on.
It's like when you mentioned the green apple, it's like on the last third of the palate there, and it's like the like the peel almost, like right next to the skin, kind of.
So I'll point out something about
it's definitely there though.
The comment that you made about the single malt Scotch. Notice that there is no E in whiskey.
Right.
Right.
So when I went to work for or started selling Waterford, I said, "Oh, they've made a huge typical error on the label." I said, "What are they going to do?" But no, this is what Mark Rainier and the board wanted. They wanted it to be associated more with that single malt Scotch slant.
So the the thing is, like, Americans spell it with an E, and
Right.
everyone else doesn't.
Whiskey.
That's kinda,
Right.
Well, Jameson, all of them, Bushmill, they spell it with an E also.
Oh, do they? I never
Yes.
noticed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I never know. So it's only Scotland.
Really, mostly
Yes.
just Scotland, but and Waterford. So
And Waterford, nice.
So there you go. It's very interesting.
It's really good. I love that there's this round bready, almost a beer bread kind of sweetness that this leaves on the palate.
Right.
And then there's a crispy, you said citrus fruit. There's a crispy citrus kind of zing that's just kind of left over too that lingers for a while,
Right,
and kind of
right.
makes your mouth water and want a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I'll point out the Dunmore on the map, and there's a map on that terroir code part on the website that shows exactly where the farm is located. It is definitely central Ireland. It is soil that has been it's gravelly soil. It has little to no irrigation. And these things are the things that they talk about in that terroir notes that you'll find on that code. The next one we're going to taste, Rathclaw, is a farm that is much closer to the ocean.
So this is named after the farm.
Yes, it's named after the farm. The dudes' names that own the farm are slight derivations of that farm name, but it's not necessarily his last name.
Right.
Okay.
But it's the name of the farm.
Yeah.
Correct. Awesome. All right, so we're going to taste that one in the next segment.
Oh, okay.
Because when we go in this segment, before we end up this segment, we want to taste, and this is going to be a hard left turn, Ian. I don't know how this is going to work.
Yeah, compared to what we just had. Like,
right. To go to a Smarty sour a beer, but you know what?
I like how you said,
we're brave.
usually we start on the lighter side, but you're bringing in an almost 7% beer, sour ale with pomegranate, watermelon, strawberry, and sea salt.
I would just point out this can be your kind of a day for the beers. So look forward to that. We got a couple of big ones here, but no, this is going to be very interesting. And I think, it's been a moment since I took that last sip of the Waterford. So we'll see how the palate adjusts. But yeah, this could be a train wreck of a segment.
I have a feeling that the Waterford and the sour is not gonna.
Yeah.
They're not going to enjoy each other's company in my palate.
But that's okay. That's why we do the sour first, and then it's out of the way, and we'll have the rest of the whiskeys to taste.
This is pouring a little bit on the foamy side, so if you want more.
Ingenious, by the way, those guys, Ingenious Brewing, they are exactly as their name suggests. They are absolutely.
Are you familiar with this brewery at all?
I am. I've been twice.
Oh, it's so
I
great.
live
isn't
up
it?
that way.
Oh, so you live right?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
It's right on Old Humble Road, right
right?
there.
It's a great place.
Absolutely.
And they're so creative, so inventive with their beers, and we need them back on the show again.
I love that when you have a sour ale, there's that sour funk to it that just
Yes. So this
plays
is
on
a
the
Smarty
nose. Are
sour.
you a fan
Okay.
of sour beers?
I love sours. I love sours a lot more than anything hoppy, kind of real hoppy things turn me off,
Okay,
but I
so
love sours.
so let me tell you about this beer. First of all,
Holy cow!
any remaining trace that I had on my palate of the whiskey is now completely blown out. That's the first thing.
Disappeared,
It's disappeared, yeah. But the second thing is, I didn't know exactly why they were calling it. It's called the Riddle, but they describe it as a Smarty sour, and I didn't know why they were doing that until the finish. And the finish is like I just ate one of the little Smarties at Halloween.
It also leaves a bit of a WTF above my head.
Yes, it
and
does,
a
which
thought
is
bubble.
kind of looks like it could belong on the can art too.
So it says, live beer, keep cold, drink fresh, real fruit, separation is natural, roll before opening. I didn't do that. I should have probably read the directions. I don't usually read the directions on beer before I drink it, though. I usually one of those, like, I'll read the directions if something goes wrong, you know?
That's why, have you noticed that IKEA They were the first to figure that out. Their directions are all
They're just
drawings.
pictures, yes.
They're just pictures.
That was
and
like
arrows.
the last Barbie house I put together at Christmas. I didn't read the directions either.
Hey, why is there a garage on the second floor anyway? Riddle me this, riddle me that. Who's afraid of a beer with all that? All it takes is fruit and a little focused violence in the brewing process. We're up for the challenge. Are you? 6.8% alcohol by volume. Oh my goodness! Brewed in can in Humble, Texas.
Yeah, it's good, but don't necessarily schedule it for the same time you're having.
I would drink a
some
pint.
good Irish whiskey.
I would drink a pint of this. So here's the thing. I didn't think that it went that bad with it. I think that it buried the whiskey pretty
It's what
quickly.
it did. It's what it did. It
Now,
obliterated it.
We didn't drink it back to back.
No, and I don't
nor
think we
do I
should.
think that that's a good idea.
I don't think we should. We'll wait until the next segment to go back to whiskey anyway.
What
so.
does this vinegar do with this milk? But it's
Exactly. But you know what? It's actually kind of tasty.
it's really actually pretty tasty, and this is something where like this is something I might walk into the brewery and go, you know what, I'll have a cup of that,
Yeah.
or a glass, because I usually do it in a tulip, right?
Right.
That would be enough for me, and then I'd move on to something else. But it's actually quite delightful.
Yeah,
I
well,
have
it's
to
been
say.
too long since we've had a sour on the show.
Do
so
not smoke a cigar with it either.
No,
That would
no, absolutely not.
would not go
Some
well.
things are not meant to be.
like scotch and mayonnaise, buddy.
Like more cowbell, not meant to be
No, not
drunk
so much with
while
the-
you're smoking a cigar. All right, tell you what we're going to do. We can take a break. We will come back. We have a short segment next, but we'll make sure it's long enough to taste this next whiskey. Our guest is Bill Chenault. He's with Waterford Irish Whiskey, and we'll be back to taste more of it and try out more of the terroir, as it were. Coming up next, it's Smoking and Toasting. Welcome back at Smoking and Toasting. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Our guest in the studio today is Bill Chenault with Waterford Irish Whiskey. And Bill, I want to make sure I'm understanding this right. Basically, these whiskeys that you brought for us to try today, the only real difference between them in terms of how they're put together is the terroir of the ground where the barley was grown. Is that right, or am I missing anything?
Basically, that's correct. Other
Okay.
than the barrel program, they're using 4 different barrels. They're using New American. They're using first use American, and we actually know on that terroir code if it's from where it's from,
Right.
either Jack Daniels or Diageo, or it's actually labeled. Then they use the French oak, which is used French oak, and then they use, of course, the Madeira port, sherry ports. But there are different percentages of those barrels and how they're used based on the different expression.
Right. So, other than the barrel aging itself and which of the barrels that it rests in, the only other difference is the terroir of the barley. Is that right?
Yeah, and then I'm sure, and I don't know for a fact, but I'm sure the distillation process, their words are low and slow. Low temp and slow distillation. So you're talking anywhere from 38 to 58 hours of distillation. That would vary also. But the terroir code will tell you what that variance is.
The Irish are just more patient than we are. It's just what it boils down to, you know?
Well, as long as they got something to drink while they're making it.
Well, exactly.
That is-
But see,
that's true.
that's a cultural difference. See, here in the U.S., we're all about fast. It has to be, instant gratification, fast food, fast checkout, drive up ATMs, whatever it is. Like, we're all about fast. Not every country's like that, And Ireland, yeah, as long as they've got a drink in one hand, they're content to wait a little while, and I don't blame them.
So this is Rathclaw, and the difference in location is, as I mentioned, Dunmore is more in the interior. Rathclaw, you can actually, from the farm, you can see the ocean from the
That's cool.
farm.
That's very cool.
And the breezes and all that jazz that we associate, like at least in the wine business, making a difference in how the fruit comes through. is apparent in this. And the question about the owner versus the farm, I forgot. On the back of each bottle is the owner's name. So Rathclaw is owned by Richard Rafteese. Dunmore is owned by a gentleman by the name of John Tynan.
Okay.
So it's the name of the farm.
What are you getting on the nose, Ian?
So there's a similarity on
Yeah.
the nose. There's a similarity to the sweetness that I got on the first one. This one has a little bit of a lighter, lighter kind of smell to it. If you ask me, I'm not sure how to describe that lighter smell.
Now, this one, to me, if you had handed it to me sight unseen and told me it was a single malt Scotch, I would have believed you. You know, it has more of the characteristics of that to my palate than what I would associate with a typical Irish whiskey.
This one has, I think I know what I was smelling there. This one has a minerality to it that the other one did not have. It's got the same.
I think that's one of the reasons it makes me think, because a lot of the Scottish single malts have that minerality.
Yeah, or kind of salt water, kind of when it's near the coast, kind of thing. This has some of that in it, and I think that's what I was getting on the nose as well. It has a similar spiciness, so you can kind of tell they come from the same place, but a different finish overall as well.
The finish is definitely different.
So this one, instead of that citrusy thing, I get almost more of a like a strawberry fruit kind of, or like a little bit of that kind of bitter,
Like a kiwi
thing.
I can tell you, when I had dinner with the master distiller Ian that made this product, he was talking to me about mincemeat pie, and I said, "Great." I can't remember the last time I had mincemeat pie. I have nothing to compare it to, but that's what he said he gets. He gets a lot of herbaceous, kind of sweet herbaceous, I guess the toasty crust kind of things coming on from that pie. But just wanted to pass that
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. In fact, it has a very almost as like after the finish, you feel like this is a pretty sophisticated whiskey. It doesn't seem like it's your everyday. This seems like a what is the retail on a bottle of that?
So these guys right here are $80.
Okay.
This guy is 90. Mm-hmm. And then the Arcadian series that we can talk about is going to be 110 to 120.
So really, these are all relatively close in price.
They are.
It's not like they jump $50, $70 an expression as you go up. So
That
interesting.
Rathclaw has a little woodier finish.
Yes,
to
it
as
absolutely
well.
does. Woodier and more minerality. For sure. Well, it's good. It's very good. All right, this was a short segment, so we're going to take a break, and we'll come right back. A couple of things to talk about, including one of your, I wouldn't even call them a rival, but another whiskey, Fireball, in big trouble. We'll tell you what's happening with them
Class
coming up.
action lawsuit.
Yep.
Oh, I think I saw
Yeah,
that.
we'll be right back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. We are all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. And speaking of craft beer, I got to get the craft beer that we got to do in this segment. So stand by, Ian, sing or something. I don't know what.
This is my moment to shine.
Right, go for
What
it.
should I say? I have nothing. No.
All right,
No,
I'm back.
Oh, man. I was just getting warm.
I'm back. Speaking of getting
That
warm,
Cruz, he's holding me back. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that my any voice or my audio voice?
that's your any voice. You said the quiet part out loud.
Again.
One of the things I love about the spirits business is I love the tiny spirits bottles, like the airplane ones, and you can now buy them for almost anything you want.
Yeah.
At your favorite spirits store, right? They got just at the Specs that I go to, they have like just
Bins of it.
bins of it, yeah, all over the place. And I love buying those little bottles and getting them on the airplane and sitting in my seat and pretending that I am the giant colossal man. And these are regular size. I stole that joke from Jake Johansson. Anyway, if you buy the little bottles of Fireball, though, the cinnamon whiskey,
Right.
Guess what? They're not whiskey. And this is the source of a big class action lawsuit. The stuff that you get in the little bottles of Fireball is not the same stuff that comes from the liquor store. And Fireball cinnamon whiskey, the spicy hot booze sold in liquor stores, is the drink most people are probably familiar with. But Fireball cinnamon, which is available at grocery stores, gas stations, and other places that are not permitted to sell liquor, is something else. It is a malt beverage flavored to taste like whiskey, and it's sold in small bottles that usually go for 99 cents. So Sazerac, who owns Fireball, has now become the recipient of a class action lawsuit. People suing over their whiskey. Yeah, exactly. So I just thought that was interesting. The label misleads consumers, they say, into believing it contains distilled spirits, which it does not.
But here's another thing too, because the Fireball whiskey is still under 40 proof, isn't it? I thought it was like 30.
I think it is just a little under 40.
Yeah, 38 is like not quite a liqueur, but it was a little under. And then the Fireball cinnamon is something like 29 or 30% only, so it's actually even lower percentage.
I know it's popular, but it's kind of like Training Wheels whiskey.
And so this is because we live in a state where we live in a state where you can't buy liquor at a convenience store. So when you see that there, you have to be suspect. So I remember looking at it and then going, okay, the ABV must be different. And remembering, and when I looked at it, the ABV on it's pretty low.
Yeah. Well, and also it's a malt beverage, so it's like, because like the little bar downstairs in my building, Market Bar, MKT, they have a really, really great beer selection. They have some very nice wines. They also make cocktails, but because of the fact they only have a beer and wine license, their cocktails are all wine based.
Right.
And so, and it doesn't mean they're not good, but you're not getting actual spirits.
It's funny to me because at Specs you can find Cuervo post-mix margarita mix.
Right.
That's made of tequila.
Made of tequila.
Made with tequila.
Yeah.
But then you go to the grocery store and you find Jose Cuervo margarita mix, which is a orange wine
right
base, where that's where they get the alcohol. So the same class action suit should have been applied to them as.
Well,
it seems to me,
and it might actually that could totally happen. Right. I think the idea behind
either
this
that or it's going to scare the industry a little bit.
I think the idea though behind this one was that those little Fireball bottles, the mini bottles, are made to look just like the regular Fireball.
They're
whiskey
identical.
Bottles. So that's why it's a little deceptive.
I remember reading something about this earlier this week, and also when you look at the labels, one of them says cinnamon whiskey, and one of them just says cinnamon.
Cinnamon, yeah.
So it's like just leaving off one word, and you might think, oh well, it's obvious if you read it, but when you just glance at it, as we all do, you never make that distinction.
Right. Exactly.
Three Floyds Brewery is a very well respected brewery, and I was excited to get this because this is not. It's not something we can usually get here in Texas.
It says it's not normal.
Yeah, it's Gumballhead, right?
Gumballhead American Wheat Pale Ale. It's so for a wheat beer, it smells hoppier than I expected it to.
Well, Three Floyds.
And it smells really fresh hoppy.
Three Floyds is kind of known for being a very IPA forward, hop experimental type brewery. But
an American wheat ale brewed with white wheat and dry hopped with hand selected hops from the Yakima Valley. Yakima Valley, just like the bike racks, right? Mm-hmm. From the Yakima Valley, bright and refreshing with a lemony finish, 5.6% by volume. This is pretty darn good.
Do you get a gumball flavor? Is that why it's called Gumballhead?
No, I have no idea. Well, maybe it's like a lemon gumball, like those. Remember those lemon drops? Or
I think there's a little of that on the finish. I also happen to think that it's very good. I would love to try more of the beers on the Three Floyds.
I bet. Like, this is good in a can. Can you imagine getting this right off a tap?
Right, because you mentioned that it has a real fresh hop taste to it, and you're absolutely right about that.
Can you imagine just how over the top it is? I really like this, actually. Mm-hmm. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did just from the nose. It still doesn't smell like it tastes.
Now, you mentioned not being, Bill, you mentioned not being crazy about big hoppy beers. Is this to your palate, or is this kind of...
No, I like this.
Yeah.
I like this. It does have a tinge of hoppiness, which surprises me for a Hefeweizen or a wheat beer, right?
Yeah.
It's very good.
It kind of
Drinks-
manifests, though.
It drinks more like an IPA than a wheat beer.
It kind of manifests, though. Well, the front end of it's very much a wheat beer, but then that hop kind of manifests as a bitter finish in a good way.
I actually really kind of like it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But there's a sweetness to it that
It does
I
say
didn't
it's not
expect
normal.
as well. It's not normal.
Yeah, an American wheat ale.
Gumballhead.
I could drink that.
Yeah, I would
Gumballhead.
kind of buy that for the packaging alone.
So it does say here that the Gumballhead name and character, and you can see him on the beer can. I think we have some B-roll of this. We might be able to see it easier. But the Gumballhead name and character, it says, are created by Rob Sayers, all rights reserved, 2007. So this may be some kind of comic book or cartoon or other type character that we're just not familiar with. Looks like it could be like a comic strip of some sort.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but I'm not familiar with Gumballhead. But he does look kind of angry, doesn't he? He does look kind of angry.
Not normal.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not normal.
Not normal. Three Floyds. All right, well that's good. That's a first, I think, Three Floyds beer that I've had an opportunity to sample, and I kind of dig it. So
I like Three Floyds.
you go. Yeah. So all right. Bill, as we move into the whiskeys, then where are we headed next?
Yeah, pretty simple. These are single farm. We talked about that.
Right.
The expression that we think is going to ultimately be the largest seller of the brand is going to called the cuvee, using a wine term, of course.
Yeah.
Cuvee meaning the.
And I noticed, by the way, just from the caps
yeah.
on the top, you've got the yellow one here, you've
The yellow
got
one
the
here.
blue one on the organic, but that one almost looks like you're saying it's a rosé, right? It's got that color of pink.
Yeah, I don't know that was planned as much as it is just pretty, but so the cuvee, and I've been told by the folks, the distillers, not to use the word blend.
Okay, so we won't.
He uses the word marriage.
Oh, I like
I don't.
it.
So it's a marriage of 24 different single farms.
So there's been some beers that have been cuvées where they marry some various
I think,
various of their in-house beers, like
but if I could speak to that, I think
St. Arnold had
Yes,
that,
yes.
and it was quite good. But
oh yeah,
how
it was
interesting.
actually one of my favorite St. Arnold's. It was where they married the Christmas ale and the Tall Ships IPA. What was it? The
Alyssa.
The Alyssa. Yeah. Oh, that was so good.
That might not
And
have been a marriage. That might have been a live-in situation.
Yeah, well,
but either way, it was pretty darn good.
I'll tell you what. When they stopped doing it, I tried making it myself. Not successfully.
Not the same.
It is not the same. But no, I will agree though that if you're a master distiller, it's one thing to blend a couple of things together and go, okay, this is pretty good. It is another to really approach a larger scale blending, if you will, like this, and I guess you'd have to do it more scientifically,
and
you know?
create a
Definitely,
convincing
yeah,
domestic
definitely.
partnership.
You're absolutely right.
Now we're just playing with the terminology.
But this may be more of a polygamist whiskey, if there's that many different.
This one smells.
Well, I could
vastly
use the man
different.
with more than one wife
Right,
analogy, but here in Houston, I'm not sure.
By the way, you're in good company though, because the Founders, is it Founders Polygamy Porter?
Yeah.
That is a very, very good beer, and it's not Founders, but it's a brewer. It's a brewery in Utah, and they're basically kind of poking fun at their own state by. In fact, apparently the Mormon Church tried to get that beer shut down, unsuccessfully. By the way, Polygamy
I'm going to
Porter.
go out and buy some tomorrow.
Yeah,
trying to remember
it's
who
really
that
good. Yeah, actually.
I think it's quite good if you like porters.
Yeah,
especially.
it really is.
This smells.
I haven't tasted it
different.
yet,
This
but-
smells less sweet. It smells a little more.
More minerality on the nose, maybe, than the others.
There's a little vanilla in this that I
Yes.
wasn't picking up on the other ones.
It does
Agreed.
have cotton candy, caramel kind of
Mm-hmm.
things going on. So this is what they're going to hang their head on over the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. They feel like the cuvee is going to be all it.
Touchdown. It's great. It is so like easy on the palate that it reminds me. It doesn't taste like a bourbon, but it reminds me of how easy a bourbon is to drink.
Yes.
You know what I mean by
Yep.
that?
I was recently at the Houston Whiskey Social back in November or something.
Yeah, we were there.
And I had a bottle of each at the table, and the cuvee finished much earlier than the.
Yeah, we chatted a bit. I got your.
We did.
I got your card and
Right on.
then passed it on to Mary. So that was a lot of fun. That place was a blast.
I could totally see though why this one. Not that I didn't like these because they were delicious, but this one is just so accessible. You know,
Right.
and I think I agree with what you guys are saying. I do think that's going to be your standout seller.
These are more like an adventure, a trip to a different country that you've never been to. This is more like, okay, Sunday afternoon.
Yeah,
let's start a fire.
Visiting an old friend.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely like that. Love it.
I'm for it.
Yeah.
This is probably my favorite one yet.
I think so. Now, I really enjoyed these, and somehow they seem, I don't know, you said more of an adventure. I totally agree with that. They somehow seem more organic in a way, I guess. But
you can't use that word. That's used over here.
I know. Okay, all right. I was going to say
something.
authentic, but I didn't want to imply that this one wasn't authentic.
I wanted to address the color. So you remember the dates that I gave you? The first harvest 15, first distillation 16. So these have only been in barrel, and the requirement in Ireland is 3 years. Must be in barrel. These have only been in barrel then, probably put in the bottle 4 years later. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have the color. There's no additive at all for color. Ultimately, this cuvee will become, darker, if you will, and they will eventually, I think, start dating
Starting
the
a
age,
deeper
giving the
age
age
to it,
statement.
those kind of things.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, are all of these whiskeys that are married in this, are they all Waterford whiskeys, or were they any of them sourced externally?
No, they're all made up of and I failed to mention the number, there's 101 different farms that they do business with.
Right.
This is 24 of them
Okay.
that are Waterford suppliers. Now, I can't say that some of their barley doesn't go to Jameson or Bushmill or
Sure,
wherever,
sure.
but it's all of these are Waterford controlled crops.
Okay, so let me make
for
sure I
lack of a better
understand.
term.
Is the marriage of the different barleys, or are each of these distilled into a whiskey and then married or blended? I know you don't want to use the blended word, but where does the combining take place? What part of the process?
Cruz, as I understand it, they're distilled and then they're married.
Okay.
And then
That's
they're
quite a-
and then they're
it's quite a-
coopered, then they're stored.
That's quite an undertaking.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
I understand that whiskeys will do this from time to time, and they'll marry in house. Okay, maybe we should use the word blended in some situation.
Yeah.
It's just too easy to say. Blended.
We
is
don't,
the-
we just
Well,
don't
okay,
want to. We don't want to imply incest here. That's what I'm getting at.
No, I mean we're having fun with that, but it's my understanding that a lot of times when companies do that to create a blend, and then a blend they want to keep consistent, they'll actually marry it after the barrels. So it's an interesting thing if they were doing that before the barrels, because I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not sure you're wrong. I
Or
don't
could
know.
just be
I
a
don't know
different
the.
thing.
I don't know the answer.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, well.
Interesting. All right.
Whatever their method is,
It works.
it really worked on this.
I'll
one.
bet you if we had time to put in the terroir
Oh
code,
yeah, I bet we could.
Yeah, it's there
and
somewhere.
I love, by the way, that you do that, because if I buy a bottle of this is what, like a $90 whiskey? you
this
said?
is 92. Yeah.
Right. So if I spend that much on it, and I've curled up with a good book or whatever, and I'm enjoying a glass of it at the end of the day, I love the thought of being able to pull out my tablet, go to the website, punch that in, and read about just all this interesting
whiskey,
background
yeah.
information about this whiskey that I'm drinking right now.
It is freaky. The guy who owns the farm, they have his kids' names listed there. I mean, it's
That's awesome.
really wild stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
So.
Well, very impressive, and we'll move on to the organic in our
Please.
next segment.
Okay.
But we do have to take a break because when we come back, it's time for what has become the most popular feature on the most popular segment of this whole program. It's a little thing we like to call drinking news, and we'll be right back to drink and share the news with you next on Smoking and Toasting. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Our program's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Show number 312. Ian, you brought this Glencairn. Apparently, there's some kind of problem with mine. It just...
So
I don't know if
the
it has a
problem I
hole in
have
it
with the
or-
Glencairn glasses is the evaporative properties.
Yes. I don't know if it's something about the shape, but it just seems like
I mean, I've
the
been
whiskey
noticing that
disappears.
the weight on mine is off by just a couple of ounces.
Yeah, I think you're right. Ladies and gentlemen, our most popular segment on the program, we have no idea why, is a little thing we like to call drinking news. We like to stress that drinking news is where we feature news stories that actually have appeared somewhere. They're real. They're not from The Onion. But these are stories that may or may not be about drinking, but are always best enjoyed if you've been drinking. And today's drinking news, we're going to, be doing stuff that is about, in fact, drinking, because it's time for another drinking escapades on Drinking News.
Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. A Florida man with one arm said he had a gator for a pet. When asked about his absent arm, he said,
I had to take my gator to the vet.
drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news.
Cheers, y'all. Well, welcome to Drinking News, which completely unexplainably has become the most popular segment on this show. Today, we're going to feature a return of an occasional feature that has become the most popular segment on Drinking News. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another edition of Drinking Escapades. Short stories of real things that happened to real people while they were drinking. There's the story of Lydia Margaret D., who confesses that while out with her friends at a martini bar celebrating her 22nd birthday, she was on the dance floor in what she describes as a cute little black dress and insanely high heels when she lost her balance and fell onto the floor. As if that weren't embarrassing enough, the long stiletto from one of her shoes got somehow caught in the thong she was wearing underneath the dress.
Oh.
And as a result, she says she was rolling around on the dance floor like a turtle on its back, trying to untangle her foot without giving the other dancers a free peep show. She says she finally rallied like a champ and then took a tequila shot to forget her troubles. Yeah.
I love a success story.
I would hang with that girl. I would totally hang with that
She's
girl.
very flexible.
Yeah, I would absolutely. And then there was Alan Shepard, whose buddies took him out when he turned 21 and got him just completely snockered. When he got home, he felt absolutely awful, as you might expect, and he sent his buddies a text to tell them how messed up he felt. Attached to the text, he sent a photo of his unflushed toilet, into which he had just suffered a serious bout of projectile vomiting.
Oh, no.
Only instead of sending the message and picture to his friends, he accidentally sent it to his dad, a U.S. Marine, who replied with an all-caps text that I am unfortunately not allowed to share with you guys since we're being syndicated soon to broadcast radio. Trust me, you have a pretty good idea what direction that whole thing went. We can share the story of S.K. Tiger, who was living in Spain when he went out for a drunken night of cheap wine with his friends, and they all wound up at a park on a hill. On one side of the park was a wall, and below it a drop-down garden that S.K. Tiger thought it would be a great idea to jump into. Turns out the garden was a very specific kind. It was a rock garden filled with cacti. So you get the idea.
Have you ever gotten cactus needles stuck in?
Oh, yeah. But I've never
few
jumped
kinds.
into a rock garden, but yes.
There's a few kinds. There's the long spiky ones.
Yeah, and then there's
those
the
suck.
little ones.
And then there's the little spiky ones.
Yeah.
And those suck. The ones that really suck
Yeah.
are the little feathery ones that get stuck in your skin that you can
You
never
can
get
never
out.
get them out.
Oh,
I agree.
days
I
and
agree.
days. Every time you just brush your skin or your shirt brushes it just the right way, you're like, ah!
Yep,
It's the
absolutely.
worst.
Then there's a story of Derek, who drunk texted a friend and said, "Are you okay? I checked your location and I see you're at the hospital. I'm so inconsiderate. How are you feeling and what happened?" To which his friend replied, "Derek, LMAO, I work at the hospital." So, yeah, there's that. Asher Napier confesses that he went out with $20 and woke up with $250, 3 lighters, 2 cell phones, and the keys to someone else's car.
Dude, now that's a night.
That's a night, yeah. I don't know if I've ever had one quite that good.
Like that guy needs to book a trip with me to Vegas.
Although you do start to wonder, what exactly did I do to get the $250?
The hangover.
Ashley Lynn had been drinking when she got stuck in an elevator. This freaked her out, as you can imagine, and she hysterically used the emergency phone they have in the elevators to call for help. When the rescuers arrived, she was surprised to find them a little annoyed with her. Turns out, in her drunken state, she hadn't pressed any buttons to take her to a floor.
Oh, no.
Shelby Medic reports that he came home after the bars and couldn't get the glass jar open for a PB&J, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So he went outside and smashed the jar on the sidewalk and then wound up eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with glass in it.
Oh, that's not the
Not
best
good.
idea.
Not good. And finally, there's the young bride from the UK who made quite an impression at her wedding reception when she got really hammered and insisted on replacing the drummer in the wedding singer's band. She convinced the drummer to take a break and then refused to let him come back. The larger problem, however, was that she'd never touched a drum set in her life.
Oh, that makes her amazing.
Wedding guests described it as being like the worst imaginable scene from Drunk Bridget Jones. The bride was so horrified by what she'd done that she locked herself in her hotel room and refused to come out for 2 days, even booking an extra night at the hotel so she wouldn't have to face the departing guests as they left the morning after, what she referred to as the drumming crime. So drink responsibly, my friends, or you could be echoing the words that Chris Morris sings in our alternate Drinking News theme song, where he sings, "Lord, I hope I don't wind up on Drinking News."
Drinking news, drinking news. That's our time for drinking news.
Cheers, y'all. So which one was your favorite? The
I like the wedding drummer.
wedding
that's
drummer?
fun.
Yeah.
Booking yourself in the hotel or the rock garden.
Yeah, Rock Garden was pretty good. I kind of like the guy that went out with $20 and came home with
That's
$250
pretty hilarious.
and
That's
keys to someone else's car. You gotta love it. What's great is when you have no idea, right? No idea.
Then, so in my 20s, me and some friends went out one night. I mean, we ended up at the Continental Club and I think the Big Easy and probably Dan Electra's. And I just remember, I mean, like my tabs that night were enormous. There was 4 of us, and we just like hit bar after bar after bar. And then for the next week, anytime someone that I wasn't used to talking to on a regular basis called me, I just went, "I'm sorry." I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm impressed that you guys tell these.
Well, you know, it's
dirty. Show your dirty laundry.
Well, you know, it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far
That
away.
was I was in my 20s. That's
Yeah.
long gone.
Yeah. It sucks that you have to get more responsible though when you get older, because those really were fun times. I remember the night it was a company Christmas party for a radio station that I worked at, and we drew names and gave other people on the staff gag gifts, and you could only spend like $20 or $25 or something like that. So it's really hard to get a good gag gift for like under $20. But the person who drew my name got me a bottle of Mad Dog 2020,
Nice.
which up until that time I had actually never drank. Right?
Never once.
So we're at the company party and we're all drinking anyway. So we'd had enough regular stuff to drink that we convinced ourselves that it might be a good idea to open up the Mad Dog 2020 and share it all around.
Says no one ever sober.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's the point. We were already drinking.
Yeah.
Had we been sober,
Yeah.
we would have never gone there, right?
You never would have drunk.
No. All I know is I had, the following day, I had the worst hangover I've ever had in my life, to this day. And I do not know whose apartment I woke up in. I have no idea. To this day, I don't know whose it was. I just remember waking up, stumbling outside, and finding at that time a payphone to call a taxi because I didn't have a cell phone back then. So it was
I told you I started with Gallo, and in your minds you might think that he's been selling fine wine all these 45 years, and no, actually the one that paid my bills for the first 3 years of my life was Thunderbird.
Oh yeah, it's totally true. I mean
those bottles.
Yeah, you see that in a lot of things.
Plus, Thunderbird had the foresight to get with the modern age because, come on. While corks are nice and they're traditional, but if you can't be modern enough to have a screw top,
well, exactly.
They started it all.
Listen, and I was a poor young DJ, man. I remember existing on Mickey's Big Mouth and that's bad stuff.
That's so bad.
That's really bad stuff. Little King cream ales were better.
Yeah, and
not much.
They were not good.
Not much, but they were better.
Strawberry Hill.
I remember
Strawberry
I remember
Hill.
getting excited when I moved to a new city and found a 40 ounce of Little King cream ale because I was used to them only in the little tiny one.
little grenade.
This is how
shaped
This is how sad and uneventful my life was at that time. I was excited about a 40 of Little King, but I digress. Let's try something good. We've got an organic Waterford Irish single malt whiskey, and this is the one you mentioned in your pricing. This is the one that, as great as the cuvee was, this one actually retail wise is going to sell for a little more. So
yeah, this will be over 100.
What is special about this one?
So the really cool thing about the organic Waterford is, first of all, it's organic, of course, and that's legit. Ireland has actually very strict organic laws. Probably
you can't just say it.
You can't just say it.
And by the way, I'm convinced at HEB the organic grapefruits are just the same as the other grapefruits.
Organic is derived from a word in some language that means needlessly expensive.
That's right.
But there are those
You pay
that
more, you get less.
that look for it and want it and need it and have to have it.
Honestly, it can be a really good thing.
But you'll notice that it's called Gaia, and Gaia is the druid or
I was
whatever.
Say it's a god, right?
She's the goddess of Mother Earth. She's the Mother Earth.
Okay, got it.
Goddess.
Yeah.
So it's Gaia. And anyway,
I think it was her apartment I woke up in that time after the Mad Dog
well, I think she's got a flat a couple of blocks down over here in Montrose. But anyway, the cool thing about it is that there are 6 farms, and you can imagine when Waterford wanted to do this organic offering, they had to go to these farmers and they had to convince them that this is what we want to do and this is why and this is what you have to do to be organic because probably 8 out of 10 of them were not organic prior.
Right.
Big changeover. You have to get rid of all your fertilizer, use all the natural stuff and do whatever's required.
No pesticides, right? Yeah.
So they got 6 guys, 6 farms. They're listed here. John, Patty, Alan, Pat, and Dennis, Jason, and Trevor. Those are the farm owners. Grew organic crops, and lo and behold, have created our organic Gaia Waterford whiskey.
Exciting.
I know we're going to close pretty soon, but I wanted to mention that the 5th one that I did not bring, which is in distribution. Specs has it. Total has it, I believe. A couple of great package stores around Texas. We have a biodynamic offering also.
Nice.
If you think organic's weird, wait till you
well, let's see how
understand
weird
about
it is.
biodynamic.
I need a little bit of weight
is.
correction on my cup here.
Yes, absolutely. So while you are doing that, let me just mention that this is such a cool thing, being so terroir driven. It makes me wonder, though. Every year it's gonna kind of be like wine, isn't it? Like every year's vintage is going to be different because the terroir is going to be different at spot A next year than it was this year.
Consistency is not important to us, to Waterford, other than cuvee. Obviously, the blend will then change as well, or the marriage.
The marriage will adjust
change
to try to achieve the same end.
Right.
Makes sense, yeah.
Right.
This has a savoriness to it.
It sure does. Almost like I don't mean this negatively, but almost like a meatiness.
I was gonna say like a chicken broth almost, not in a direct comparison way, but in a
it doesn't smell like chicken, but that's so interesting. Savory for sure.
Oh, it's got a butteriness to it.
It sure does.
It's
And
like,
it is also very easy to drink. Much
And
like
vanilla
the
pops out on this one.
particularly on the finish. Kind of comes in late, the vanilla. Comes in late like a champion.
like a croissant with some apple butter on it. Is what I'm-
Apple butter, that's a good one.
I will mention that all of these are 50.
Yeah, I saw that. They're all at
50%
50%.
This is really good.
So they're all a bit hot.
It's really
But
good.
this does not. This one does not come across like that. This one comes across. This is probably the most gentle, and probably delicate. I think of them.
I think you made
That's a
it
good
right.
way to. A lot of finesse in this one.
There's
Absolutely.
just more, and it's. And that's not saying any of the other ones, but this one has a little more.
It's got a lovely sweetness to it.
Yeah, it's got and it's a right up front sweetness too. There's a
Almost makes me think of like a really good
that
candy bar.
pastry thing. There's a little powdered
Really
sugary kind
organic
of
candy
like
bar.
the powdered sugar they put on a pastry. Sometimes there's a
Like a beignet.
almost a bubble gum, but not quite.
I know what you're talking about.
Oh,
That's
you know
the sweetness.
my favorite candy bar, Zero, the caramel nougat. That's what
I know what
Maybe
you're talking about.
nougat's more what I'm thinking too. That might be closer.
I don't know what a nougat is, but
You know,
what
to
it's
this
in the
day,
candy
it's
bar.
in so many candy bars. and
I'm
I have
not
no
sure
idea what it
anyone
actually
knows.
is either.
I don't know.
I'm not sure anyone knows. Well, I dig it. I think it's
I'm
really
for
good.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
I'm
wow.
100% for that.
So, what about distribution outside of Texas? Because our show is heard everywhere. Is this a whiskey that people can get in other U.S. states, or
I
are you
believe the
expanding
account right now
slowly?
is 32 states.
Okay.
I'm not sure the ones we're missing, but you could well imagine.
Sorry,
which ones.
Wyoming.
Yeah.
It's probably some of the control states, possibly Wyoming, Utah, maybe. I know we're in North Carolina, but anyway, and I know we're up east big time. Our largest markets are New York and Chicago. Texas, number 3. We're blessed with good distribution here and where we need to be. We're in all the big guys that you can imagine. And growing the U.S. sales team, I have 4 counterparts covering the country. We are managed by a gentleman, Vic Morrison, who's been in the whiskey business many years, old McCormick guy, and he lives in Denison. He's running the show. And we have a great distributor here. We're with Victory. They do a good job for us. And yeah, so the future is very bright.
Well, I would just say that for those of you who think you kind of might know what this tastes like because you're familiar with Irish whiskey, this is a very, very different, take on Irish whiskey, and in a very good way. And it's not to.
Is there a thing
Knock other
other
Irish
than
whiskeys, but-
obviously where it's made? Is there a thing that makes Irish whiskey Irish whiskey? Is there a set of rules that make?
So the rules that are different than any other place are 100% barley.
Yeah.
Distillations can go no more than 3. Waterford is only 2 distillations.
Okay.
So we are we figure if it's not right after the first distillation, then we can try to make it a little righter the second, but there's no need for the 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th.
Yeah.
It's not vodka. Otherwise, you just end up with vodka.
There's no peated whiskey yet. We are bringing to market a peated Waterford, but we actually put the must, not the must. I'm a wine guy again. We put the product onto a boat and goes over to Scotland, where it's actually peated, and then bring it back.
I could.
Oh,
I
so you're
could
gonna put your
taste-
barley? They're gonna.
I could
bring
taste
the barley
this.
over there, have it peated, and
Yes.
and then bring it back.
Bring it
That's
back.
incredible.
I could
Isn't that
taste
wild?
this peated. I could. I could imagine this with.
I have
with
a bottle
peated
of
flavor.
the peated here, not here, but I wanted to bring it. Next time, I'll bring it.
How interesting! I love
Fair
that.
enough. Fair enough.
And
well, this
I think
has
that's
been fun.
basically the differences. I can't think of anything else that makes
This is such a fun product, and Irish whiskey's been one of those things in the last few years that's been sneaking back into the public awareness.
It
big
has,
time.
in fact, become the fastest growing
And there's
segment of the
been
whiskey
some
market.
staples
Yes.
of the industry that have been out there for years, like Redbreast and yeah, I mean, there's some great Irish whiskeys out there,
The red
and some
spot
aged
or the
aged with the green spot,
green
the red
spot.
Oh,
the
that's really good.
Teelings.
Yeah.
Teelings.
Yeah.
I mean, Teelings
Even,
at
quite frankly,
$32 is an
even-
amazing thing.
Even quite frankly, Slane
Slane
is a really good, inexpensive
I'd
Irish
love to
whiskey.
see this though. This is that next level.
Right. Oh, you're absolutely right.
that-
This is Irish whiskey given the same kind of sort of like respect and care and treatment as a Scottish single malt gets.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what to me is different about this, because I don't think of most Irish whiskeys, even the ones that I really, really like, I don't think of them in the same way I think of a single malt Scotch.
Right.
You know, but these I would, all of them.
So when I come to see you again, what I want to talk about is our new offering that'll be in the market in Texas in April or May.
Okay.
It's going to be the same approach, the terroir approach, in a category of beverage alcohol spirits that I call the Rodney Dangerfield category.
No,
Rum whiskey.
Rum whiskey.
Rum.
Oh, rum. You
So
need to know I'm a big rum fan.
So we have a distillery that we've built, that Waterford has built in Grenada. It is started producing 2 years ago. The cane is identified now by farm, so the
So you're
terroir
gonna pull that
slant.
same
Give
side
me the
Yes,
same.
together. Yeah.
sugar cane with a terroir focus.
Love it.
And we'll be bringing to you Renegade here very shortly.
Oh,
Really
wow, that's
excited
awesome.
about that. All right, tell you what we're going to do. We take a break, come back with our final segment. We actually still have one more thing to taste, and that is the Shiner Brewer's Pride Barrel-Aged Doppelbock. So we'll get ready to taste this in our final segment, and before we say goodbye, but didn't want to let the show go without that. That organic was really good.
That's really good.
Really good. We'll be right back. It's Smoking and Toasting.
So the story goes.
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. We are the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Nicely done, sir. Oh, you got an active one.
Got a happy beer.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You can go with that. Yep. So we're going to be tasting one last beer here once it settles down a little.
That was such a beautiful thing too, because I clicked the bottle cap on the table and it bounced into the empty cup.
Beautiful, beautiful. If we were playing beer pong, you'd be ahead. So,
Can I dab the bottom of this on that?
yeah, on that. There you go. So while
Thank
Ian
you so
prepares to
much.
pour this, let me tell you a little bit about it. It is from our friends at the Spoetzl Brewing Company in Shiner. It's Shiner Brewer's Pride Barrel-Aged Doppelbock, and the barrels they've been
easy for
aging
you
in
to say.
are from Garrison Brothers. So a very well-respected Texas brewery, Texas distillery, rather.
Man.
Guys we've had on the show. So.
Texas distilleries getting themselves on a map. Garrison Brothers getting pretty big.
Well, and Shiner is, a very well-recognized Texas product. I remember when I moved from Houston up into the Northeast way back in the late 90s, I still could find Shiner beer in some of the better stocked beer stores.
Well,
and
Shiner's
stuff.
one of those things around here that gets a
Shiner
little.
Bock, at least,
Yeah, Shiner Bock gets a little naysayed. Because it's everywhere around
Bock's a
here, and
good
people don't
beer.
realize that you may not like it because it's everywhere and in every grocery store. Because I think that's the reason. It's just it's everywhere. But the truth is, it's a good beer.
It really is a good beer.
Get
And
over it.
I can't tell you how many times it has saved me because the beer menu at the restaurant that I'm at really is not good, but thank God they have Shiner. Thank God. So this is going to be a little different than your typical Shiner Bock. This is a Doppelbock, and it has been aged in Garrison Brothers barrels, and it is the Brewer's Pride series, and it also was a little pricey, as I recall.
You hold in your hand our Brewer's toast to our loyal drinkers. These limited edition brews represent our brewmaster's biggest, boldest, and most innovative beer ideas.
Ginger,
Yes.
licorice,
all
you're
kinds
nailing
of
it.
flavors underneath here,
Scan
too.
the QR code below to learn about Texas Pour in collaboration with Garrison Brothers Straight Bourbon, aged in ex-Garrison Brothers barrels, export barrels.
You
Just got a
can
little QR code
detect
on
that there's
there.
been some port involved because
Oh,
it has
definitely.
that has that little port wine roundness to the
Right.
to the flavor.
Yeah, there's a certain kind of deep sweetness that when you do the port wine barrels you get, and it happens in whiskey and it happens in beer. There's just this, it's like a dark, deep kind of sweetness that
This
you
is
get. I don't know how to
you know what's
describe it.
interesting about this to me though is this is for as big as it is surprisingly drinkable.
Oh,
What would you think about a cigar with this?
I think I would think many
I would
good
love
things.
a cigar
Yes.
with this, and a
Yes.
giant
Many good
cigar with
things,
this.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything
could
on the
stand up-
Maduro,
Yeah,
like the Bella Artez, the
This I was say this could stand up against something pretty big cigar wise.
yeah. I mean, even like an LFD double Lajero, those kind of things, it could stand up easily. This is at 12%, by the way.
Anything? Yeah, see, I told you.
That's a big
I told
beer.
you we were having big beers today. I told this is a great day for you, Ian.
Wow.
Our first
Coming
one
in
was
at
like
12%.
6. The second one was like 7. And now we're at 12. So there you go.
I'm for it. This is fantastic.
It really, really
And we
is.
Do you
say
know,
this
do
for
you
the-
know where that bomber came from? Was it? What store? Do you know?
I got this one at Specs.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Specs
So you going to get
Midtown.
some? Yeah,
Specs,
it's real
Specs
good.
in
Absolutely.
Midtown. Yeah.
You know, this is one where I think picking up 2 or 3, it would also be one of those things where maybe storing one and aging it for a year and
Totally.
seeing what happens.
Because to me, this is, and we talk about this a lot on the show. It almost goes back to what we discussed at the opening of the show today about to me, all of this stuff, the whiskey, the cigars, the craft beer. This is not about politics. It's not about where we differ. This is about where we connect. And to me, this is the perfect beer to pull out when you have a friend over and you want to share this bottle.
Yeah.
This is that kind of a beer.
Amen,
In my
100%.
mind.
Exactly right.
And I don't have to agree with all your politics to have a really good time sharing this bottle with you. You know?
I had beer on my glasses.
Which is good, by the way, because very few people agree with my politics. So there's, imagine if I could only share great beer and cigar and spirit memories with people who thought exactly like I do. I'd be a very lonely
how about
person.
we talk about music?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. That's not divisive at all. Come on, Ringo really was a good drummer. Come on, I threw it out there, bat it back.
Yeah, I can make some new friends with this one.
Yeah,
Right.
no, yeah, absolutely.
Get in there, man.
Absolutely, that's really good stuff. No, so the Brewer's Pride, they do, I think, a fresh Brewer's Pride release every year.
Yeah.
And so this is one of their
Yeah, and I've
things
had
where-
a couple of. We've had at least one on the
We
show
have,
before.
yes,
and
we
it was
have.
fantastic.
And I will just say this, at Shiner being a product, because Shiner Bock is so ubiquitous in Texas and something you can find almost everywhere, even out of the state of Texas, which is where they're from, they become almost a mainstream craft beer, to put it that way. Mainstream just because they're so easy to find. Like you can get it almost everywhere. So when they talk Brewer's Pride, to me, this is their brewer going, let me show you. Yeah, Shiner Bock is great. Let me show you what else I can do.
Yeah, and
You know?
here's the thing too. Like even my brother in International Falls can go to his local liquor store. Now they're
Right.
not going to have it at the convenience store like you have
Right,
around
right.
here, but he can go to his local liquor store and find Shiner Bock, and that has been, I know, over the years, a bit of comfort to him.
Well, it was a big comfort to me when I moved to Boston.
Yeah.
As I moved from Houston to Boston back in the 90s. And the fact that I could get Shiner Bock when I wanted it. There were also all these cool beers I was exploring and checking out.
Right.
And that was where I met Harpoon IPA, which changed my life. But the fact that I could get a Shiner Bock when I wanted one by going to the right beer store was a comfort.
I will
It
tell
really
you
was.
to this
get it.
day, probably every 4th or 5th 12-pack that I buy is Shiner.
It's just such a...
It's just
I keep the family pack in my fridge all the time.
you
the
know,
family pack is nice.
You
Yeah.
know, one of the reasons that I kind of keep it around, keep it on hand, because it's a beer that almost, this sounds like a bad, like, soft rock station would say this, but it's the beer that everyone can agree on. right? Everybody, like you can pull it out, and the people who aren't really craft beer people, they go, "Oh yeah, I like Shiner Bock," and then Ian comes over, who likes barley wines and crazy stouts and porters, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll take a Shiner," And so it's the beer everyone can agree on.
Right.
But everybody might not agree on this.
The
But,
bad catchphrase.
oh yeah,
Was it TSU had a tag on their station years ago? This would have been like late 90s, early 2000s. I just remember listening and cringing every time. They're like, "We're smooth, but we play real jazz." I'm like, oh, come on, dude.
yeah,
No, you don't.
yeah.
Never put a negative in your tagline.
I always like them when they say, "The radio station that everyone at work can agree on, with less talk and more soft rock. Today, now, right now." Like it's like they combine like 18 slogans into one. You're just like, just shut up and play a song, please. Well, I got to tell you something, Bill. It has been a real pleasure having you on. These whiskeys are all very good. If you'd come on with only one of them, Ian and I would have been like, "Oh, good show today. We had some good whiskeys." So,
Great.
but they're
Thank you.
all like very different and all very interesting, and yet to think that the difference in all of these is the soil and the farm where the barley was raised. That beyond that, and I know one of them's a blend or marriage, but beyond that, they're essentially it's the same
Your
process that
distilling
goes
process
into making
is
this.
the same
Right.
process, no
Right.
matter what you're putting into it.
Right, and
And then the only other variable is the barrels that you choose.
So it is fascinating to me that you are really the first distillery that I'm aware of that has put this kind of emphasis on the terroir, and I think that's
I've
so
been told
interesting.
that is our selling feature.
There was
Very cool.
there was a cigar maker a few years back, and I'm blanking on his name
Perdomo.
right now. No,
You're not talking about Lot 23 Perdomos?
no, there was a cigar brand out a few years back, and they were I think the guy that started the cigar brand also had a wine company, and he was about the terroir and pairing the cigar with the wine. It was a pretty interesting thing, but I don't think it lasted. I don't think that company's around anymore. I wish I could remember the name of it right now. Wiki Brian put it in the
show notes.
Put it
yeah.
in the show notes, yeah.
Well, we have we'll do some digging and find that out. A couple things I want to make you aware of coming up. I think this has been confirmed. I'll have to double check. Next week's guest on the program is Abby Heim. Abby is with something called Pink Boots, and I have no idea what it's about.
No idea
so
what's
I'm
happening
very
there.
excited. But this Mary, who does our booking, was very excited about landing this booking for the show. So we'll be looking forward
how
to
fun. Okay.
to figuring out what this is all about. And then the week after, Ian, which will be on the show will air on the 9th of February. So it'll be the second Thursday in February. We got to do a pipe show before the weather gets warm.
We've got to.
We've got to do a pipe show. So we're going to do a pipe show the week of the 9th of January. So we're looking forward to that. And then some other interesting things coming up, including Tim Young and Joel Johnson will join us in March. There with Hoot and Young, whiskey and cigars.
Nice.
Both. So we'll need a place to go smoke for that show as well. So we'll talk about all of that, and then of course coming up in July, show number 333 of Smoking and Toasting.
Madness.
If you can imagine that. So it'll be. I think I'll just go ahead and say it now. That show will be brought to you by Uber. Have a great week, my friends. Bill, thank you so much for bringing this
pleasure.
great whiskey on.
You guys are awesome.
Very impressive, and all of it, I think, totally reasonably priced, too. So go out, grab some of this, find it. It's good. Irish whiskey is the bomb. Thank you for coming and being a part of Smoking and Toasting today. We'll see you again
And
next week.
Smoking and Toasting's here to tell you that elevator's not traveling sideways. You were laying down.
Yes, exactly right. Lord, I hope I don't wind up on drinking news. Have a great week, my friends, and until we meet again, cheers, y'all.
Here.
Cheers, y'all.
You're such a sweet little